Happy 2023, everybody! If you are through hiking the Appalachian Trail in 2023, I have 6 things that you should be doing now to prepare for your through hike. Thank you everyone for being patient with me as I took a few weeks off from posting. I'm back now. I probably won't be posting as much in the winter just because this is my sleepy season. And I'm not doing as much hiking, I'm not backpacking, and just generally this is a season where I slow down a lot and I nap a lot and I'm skiing most weekends instead of backpacking. But I took a few weeks off because I just was really busy right before the holidays. Work got really busy. I had to attend a conference. It was remote, but it was still really exhausting to have to be going to all these different sessions and doing work based around that. And I was also doing a lot of dog sitting, and then I went home for the holidays. And I don't know about you guys, but during the pandemic, I just didn't really get to see a lot of friends and family back home. I did go home a few times during the pandemic, but my dad is at pretty high risk for COVID going badly if he gets it. So I always had to be extra careful when I was home. And we just didn't have the family gatherings and stuff during the pandemic that we usually have. So I felt like this year it was definitely much more of a return to normalcy. And it was also kind of making up for lost time in a lot of ways. I saw a lot of family members, a lot of friends that I haven't seen in ages, which was awesome. But oh my gosh, it was exhausting. Especially for me this time of the year, you guys, I just don't have the energy that I have in the other seasons. And I don't have as much energy to give to others. So it was pretty exhausting for me. And in Colorado, we got in New York, which is where I'm from, we got the really intense cold storm that came down from the Arctic. The polar vortex came down through the Rockies and then went over to the Northeast. So also, I love to film my videos outside. I was planning to do some filming outside while I was in New York, and it was not happening. Anyway, but I'm back. So thank you for being patient with me. That was a long-winded way of saying that. All right. Let me jump into the 6 things that you should be doing now if you are hiking the AT in 2023. Okay, number 1, if you haven't started already, start training physically for your hike. Can you get in shape on trail? Yes, you definitely can. That's what I did, and I don't recommend it. I suffered for it by not training ahead of time. I did have ambitions to train ahead of time, and at the time, I was living in Washington, D.C., and I did do a lot of walking while I was there. Just a big part of my life in D.C. was walking everywhere, and I did do some walking in the boots that I was going to take out on the AT, but I meant to start walking home from work with my backpack on and never got around to that. Didn't do much winter hiking when I lived in D.C., and when I got on the trail, I suffered for it because they say it takes you 4 to 6 weeks to get your trail legs. I fully agree with that. It would have been nice to start the trail with trail legs. And I did do that when I hiked the Colorado Trail this past summer. And let me tell you what, it was way better. Way better to start the trail in shape than not. And you lower your risk for injury and you just have a much better time. I think the biggest part of physically training for a thru hike is getting used to the weight of your backpack. So if you're going out doing your training hikes, or maybe you don't have anywhere to hike near you, you're getting on a treadmill at an incline, or you're getting on the Stairmaster, do that with your backpack and with it fully loaded with your gear, your food, your water, because that's the killer part, I think, of backpacking and long distance backpacking especially, is having to deal with the weight of the pack. For example, I had a week on the Colorado Trail where I had a week's worth of food, and it was just bugging me down so much. I was getting so pissed under the weight of the pack. I was tripping on things. And I remember when I started the AT, I hadn't trained. My backpack was way too heavy. I was tripping on stuff constantly. Granted, there are a lot of rocks and a lot of roots on the AT, which is not really the case for the Colorado Trail, for example. But like, I didn't need to be tripping on all that stuff. You get what I mean. So do yourselves a favor, get out training and do it with your pack on. Okay, number 2, this is in line with that. Dial in your gear by going on some shakedown hikes. So go out backpacking on long weekends, longer if you can. Get out there with all your gear. Do it in the rain because you are going to deal with so much rain on the AT. And you got to find out if your gear is going to hold up in the rain. And if it's not, you're going to need to fix that before you get out on the trail and get soaking wet. And I mean, you're going to get soaking wet no matter what. But hopefully you won't be getting soaking wet, say, in your tent. So get out, do some hiking in some cold rain, or do some backpacking, I mean in some cold rain, some long weekends if you can. Test out all your gear. Make sure it all works for you. Make sure it's working in the rain, in the wind, in different kinds of weather, in the cold. And if things aren't working for you, get things switched out. And also between your just training for your thru hike in general and doing these shakedown hikes, you'll also find out if your shoes are gonna work for you. And this is a biggie because a lot of people go out there and start getting a ton of blisters and their feet are killing them and all the stuff. And they have to buy new shoes once they get out on the trail. They're actually at Neal's Gap, which is your first kind of hint of civilization, if you will, out on the AT. You'll get to an outfitter and there's a tree where it's just full of hiker shoes. And some of these shoes are allegedly from hikers who got to Neal's Gap and they were like, peace out, this is not for me, I'm going home. But for other people, they get there and they're like, these shoes freaking suck. I never want to see them again. Toss them into the tree and buy new shoes. So you don't need to be one of those people. You don't need to be one of those people who gets out on the AT and starts getting a bunch of blisters because you have the wrong shoes, you have the wrong size shoes, etc. By the way, your feet, once you start backpacking every day, are going to swell up. Most long distance backpackers are wearing at least a half shoe size up, usually a full size up. So think about potentially sizing up when you're getting your shoes. And again, these kind of training hikes and shakedown hikes are going to help you figure out if your shoes are going to work for you. And I think that's important. Okay, number 3, go make an appointment with your doctor. I know especially men don't like to do this. I know that's a stereotype, but I think it rings true for a lot of my male friends and family members. They never go to the doctor, which women often go to the doctor on a yearly basis. At least that's in terms of like my friends, okay? Again, I know it's a stereotype, but anyway, if you're a man or a woman, make an appointment with your doctor. Let them know what you're about to do. Get a wellness check. Make sure everything's working well because you don't want to get out in the wilderness and start having underlying health problems popping up. And ask them, are there any vaccinations you might want to get ahead of time? I know that's a trigger word at this moment, but what I'm talking about is, for example, like, do you need a tetanus booster? My doctor recommended before I went out on the AT that I get a hepatitis A and B vaccine, even though I had been vaccinated for those things before. She said that the vaccines don't last a lifetime like they used to think that they did. They often will only last like 20 years and they'll start fading and not working as well. So she was like, just to be on the safe side, I think you should get a hepatitis A, B vaccine. And so I went and did that before my AT hike. And then you can also ask your doctor about any medications that you might need to bring out there. Like, I had a daily medication, and so I talked to my doctor about how to get a 6-month supply while I still had health insurance because I quit my job to do the AT, so I didn't want to have to be paying full price out of pocket for those 6 months. So she helped me get that medication ahead of time. You also might want to talk to your doctor about getting some antibiotics for like just general infections in case you get like an ear infection or like, you get a cut and it gets infected or something like that. I'm not a medical professional, so definitely talk to your doctor about that. But my mom is a nurse, so she talked me through a lot of this stuff, and I went to see my doctor ahead of the AT. And then you also might want to consider bringing a course of antibiotics in case you get Lyme disease or symptoms of Lyme disease. Very common out on the AT, especially in New York and generally in New England. So I knew at least 3 people on the AT who ended up getting Lyme, and they got pretty darn sick before they started taking their antibiotics. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you are days away from a town and you realize you have potentially caught Lyme, because another thing with Lyme is that if you catch it early and take your antibiotics, usually there aren't like chronic long-term effects, but if you don't catch it early and get treated, then it can have some pretty nasty long-term chronic effects. So maybe talk to your doctor about getting a course of antibiotics in case you get Lyme. And then they might be able to talk to you about any, supplements or vitamins you might want to take along the way. I know I ended up with an iron deficiency, so on my next through hike, I'll definitely be taking a multivitamin and some iron pills out on the trail with me. But yeah, just make an appointment with your doctor and go talk to them about your big plans before you actually get out on the trail. Okay, number 4, register your hike with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. This is totally voluntary, but it's a way for through hikers to tell the ATC, like, I'm starting my hike and I'm going to start it on this day. And so they're tracking how many people are starting on each day. And so that could help you, you could look and see how many people are planning to start on your day. And if it's an exorbitant amount, you could change your date. And this could help, lower impacts on ecosystems by having a ton of people start on the same day, reduce crowding, just, for your mental health. You probably don't want to get out there in the wilderness and then just be so crowded by people all the time, which I will warn you, if you start the normal time going northbound between, say, early to mid-March and mid-April, you are probably going to be in the bubble at first. It's just the reality of that's the season that most people start. So just be prepared that you are probably going to see some pretty crowded campsites and shelters for the first few weeks you're on trail. For me, things really started really, really thinning out after the Great Smoky Mountains, and then people seemed to get more dispersed. And I didn't start seeing crowds again till way up north. And the reason for that is some people get near the end and they slow way down, like me. And some people get near the end and they're like, I want to be done with this so bad. And they race to the end. And also some people realize they're not going to have time to finish the whole trail until they flip up north. And so things start getting a little more crowded up north. Oh, and the other thing is, like, the flip-floppers will go up to Katahdin and start hiking down. And also the southbounders start coming down. So that's another reason why things up north start getting a little more crowded. But, the whole long middle section for most of the trail is not very crowded. So if you get out there in the beginning and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many people, this is going to drive me crazy, don't worry, things will start to thin out. Next up, make and save as much money as you possibly can. Running out of money is a huge reason that people end up having to quit their thru hikes. It's probably going to be more expensive than you think it is. It was more expensive than I thought it was going to be. Even though I had read like, oh, this is what most hikers spend, I was like, I'm not going to spend that much. That's so silly. And then I got out there and had to deal with a ton of rain, and it was like really freaking cold at the beginning of the trail, and then it was really hot in the summer, and you just don't comprehend how hungry you are going to be all of the time once your hiker hunger kicks in. And when you get to a town, you might think to yourself, I'm not going to spend money on, restaurants, or I'm not going to spend exorbitantly on food and things like that. And then you get to a town and you have been starving for the last 5 days and you get so sick of your hiker food and you never want to see another protein bar another day in your life. And so you end up splurging for the town meals, or splurging for the town beers, or splurging for the nice hotel room with the pool or the bathtub. You get the idea. So plan on spending more money than you think that you're going to. And also remember that if you are a person who has to go back to work after, and maybe you're a person who quit your job to go out on the trail like I did, you're gonna need money to restart up your life. I know you retirees don't have to worry about that, but us working folk do have to worry about that. And so I personally had to find a new job once I got off the trail, and I was pretty broke. I had some money left over, but like not as much as I would have liked to be comfortable job searching, moving across the country, etc. So just keep in mind that if you are going back to work and you haven't been able to take a leave of absence from your job and keep your job, then you're gonna need, first of all, your on-trail expenses, again, more than you probably think you're gonna need. And then once you get off, you're gonna need a buffer from the time that you get off until you actually get a new job. So just be prepared financially for all of that, because running out of money, like I said, is a huge reason that people end up having to get off trail and quit their thru hikes. Not fun. You don't want to be with those people. And finally, write down your why. Why are you going out hiking the AT? How will you feel? How do you anticipate feeling when you finish the trail? How are you going to feel if you quit? What are you going to miss out on if you quit? Just mentally prepare yourself, basically. And I would recommend giving Zach Davis's Appalachian Trails a read. I think it's a really helpful book in getting yourself mentally prepared for being out on the trail. I actually did write down all of these things ahead of time, just so that if I was having a hard day out on the trail, then I could look at them and uplift my spirits. But turns out I actually didn't need to do that because I freaking love my experience. I just thought it was the greatest. And I hiked the entire trail with a college friend, Ibex, who, if you guys watch my channel, you know Ibex. And she was the same way. She also wrote all these things down and didn't end up needing them. She loved it as much as I did. And so I think that we really fed off of each other a lot. But I have heard, so Zach actually lives here in Colorado as well, and he'll occasionally hold like a thru-hiker meetup at a brewery or something. And so I met him and talked with him several times. And he's said to me that, like, you know, not everyone has your magical experience out on the trail. Like, a lot of people, it's hard for them and they suffer. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm so great, like I didn't have any issues on the trail. I'm just trying to say that people deal with the AT in different ways. My brain, I think my brain chemistry just really, really loved it. My brain got flooded with all these really good feel-good chemicals, and I just lived in la la land for the vast majority of the time I was out on the AT. But not everyone is that way. And then I did suffer for that because I got off the trail and I got into a really, really, really dark place. I was in a deep post-trail depression for several months after getting off the AT. And I've thought about this a lot in the time. You know, it's been a few years at this point since I did the AT, so I've had a lot of time to kind of dive in and think about that and try to figure out why that happened. And I think for me, it was a brain chemistry thing. Because I've done a lot of, you know, traveling abroad and seasonal jobs and other things that kind of mimic in a way the AT, and I never got the post whatever depression in that way. But I think with the AT, I mean, there's so many amazing things about it. The community is incredible. It's super beautiful. It's such a cool, adventurous life that you're living out there. But I think specifically for me, my brain chemistry just had to even out. You know, it felt so good on the trail. I got so used to hiking all day, every day, being outside all day, every day. And then once I was finished, I was still exercising daily. I was staying at my parents' house for a few months until I got my new job and moved out to Colorado. And I was still hiking like 5 miles a day, occasionally going on runs. Like, I was still exercising, but it just wasn't to the degree. And I think my brain just had to come back down to baseline, and it took a while for that to happen. So anyway, get yourself mentally prepared for the trail and maybe write some things down so that you can take a look at them on a rainy day, and just remember that there will be many rainy days. Let me know down in the comments if you are going to be hiking the AT this year, or if you're doing any other long distance trails. If you are interested in more AT content, I have a whole big playlist about the AT. I just absolutely freaking loved my experience. And if you're interested in either the Foothills Trail or the Colorado Trail, I also have playlists on those trails. I'm not quite sure yet what trails I'm going to be doing in 2023. They're going to be shorter ones because I do have a full-time job that I'm intending to keep this year. But I am hoping to get some shorter through hikes in. Right now, which ones I end up doing are going to be really dependent on what permits I can get. For example, I'm really interested in the John Muir Trail in California, but it's permit based. So I believe the lottery for that, or the permit process for that, starts February 1st-ish. So wish me luck. We'll see what happens. I've got some other ones I'm interested in as well. That one is probably my biggest focus at the moment, but it's also, it's really competitive to get those permits. So who knows what's going to happen. But I do have some things, other backup options as well. I'd like to get a permit for the Wonderland Trail. Again, hard to get. I tried to get one last year, couldn't get one. Potentially the Tahoe Rim Trail if I can't do the JMT. We'll see what happens though. I really haven't figured out yet what I'm going to be doing this year, but stay tuned because I will definitely be doing a lot of hiking. Just where, I don't know yet. We'll see. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to let me know if you're hiking the AT this year. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more hiking, backpacking, and outdoor content. Give this video a like if you're feeling in a good mood and want to be nice. And I'll talk to you all next time. See ya.